they laughed at us when we said we were going to do it. They were like, ha, they're like, you guys think you're going to be able to kind of compete with that? It will be the most soul destroying thing you've ever done, but the most fulfilled I've ever felt, questioning myself, saying, is this it? Is this what life looks like for me? Consumers buy into moments to connect, they buy into experience. Like, gone are the days where mass distribution alone wins. We later found out we outsold Patrón at Taste London. Getting something out that is good enough and having a minimal viable product that you can kind of get feedback on is fine. I even get goosebumps talking about it now. I was just like, it was the most...
Is that what you needed to prove to other people that it was going to work?
Now you say it, you know what? I feel like it's more proving to myself.
Wynter, how are you?
I'm good. Can't complain. How are you?
I'm very well. Well, look, welcome to What It Takes. Very excited to talk about your journey that you've been on for the last couple of years with a very exciting brand. But before we do get into that, we'd love to talk a little bit around your beginnings and kind of what early life was like to you before you decided to do what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start university. So I went to the University of Leeds. Mm-hmm. I studied international business when I was there.
Oh, nice.
Did a placement year, went to IBM. So classic corporate jungle where university brainwashed me to believe the only way to be successful was to climb the corporate ladder. So rolled off of my IB course, went to the commercial graduate program at Sky. Nice. So another corp, did 4 rotations there in kind of commercial propositions, trading and performance, all of that good stuff. And it was probably on the 3rd rotation of my grad scheme, I was questioning myself, saying, is this it? Is this what life looks like for me? Mm-hmm. And it was actually then that myself and my co-founder Alice, and she used to work at ASOS and L'Oreal, we were like, we have so much more to give than being in this kind of corporate machine. And we were drinking an abundance of Pimentaes on the balcony, and where all good business ideas start, plugging a pain point. We wondered why nobody had made a pre-batched Pimentae. Mm-hmm. Because we're millennials, we're hyper-connected, we're lazy, we want things at the click of a finger. Uh-huh. And the biggest argument that we were having at that point in time when we were 24 and 25 was, who is going to be making the next spicy margarita in the kitchen? Mm-hmm. So that is what life looked like. And 2 months after that conversation on the balcony, Pimentae was enrolled on Company's House. Nice. And that was our humble beginnings.
What a day. You were saying that obviously you went down a bit more of a traditional route.
Yeah.
And you were saying maybe that was a little bit more like, that's what everyone does. Mm-hmm. Was that really the feeling that you had, or was there ever an earlier idea or early parts of your childhood where you wanted to do things a little bit different?
Honestly, no. I think my dad was the person in our family who was always very corporate led in terms of me watching him navigate his career path. And it was always kind of very structured. You get a promotion, you go from one corporate to the other. And I kind of followed that same journey at university. You always want to please your parents. And I also think, shame on university. The only people they bring in to speak to you when you're there are Goldman Sachs, HSBC, NatWest. I was very much pigeonholed into a funnel to, join one of the big fours. If you didn't, you were seen as a bit of a failure. So, I can't say I had any entrepreneurial inklings when I was at the University of Leeds. It was only when that I was kind of ejected into that corporate space. I was like, I'm spending more time here than with my family or my friends. Like, it surely can't be this miserable and monotonous with so little independence. And I just, I felt bored and I was 24, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I think a lot of people now, like, I didn't go to university just because I was always like, it's going to be a nightmare for me and I'll hate it. And everyone that I knew did. So it was always a little bit like, not to make myself sound too cool, but like, it was always just like never an option for me. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of people now, particularly within social, you see a lot of conversation around that being wasted time, and particularly wasted time when going into like corporate immediately.
Yep.
Do you look at it in the same way, or do you look at it as a bit more like it's still valuable learnings and it's still ways to develop?
I would say everything that I learned at university, there were very minimal practical applications. It was all theory-based, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all of that kind of stuff. Applying some of the kind of practical structures into something that is so vastly different when you're going into practice. Yeah. I mean, I learned more in my first 6 months of Pimentae than I did at university. The thing that I would say was amazing, and if you are feeling a little bit unsure at university, a grad scheme is a great place to be able to rotate around different business areas. So all of my transferable skills in terms of commercial business cases, understanding what regular cadence looks like with a large team and internally, all of that kind of process driven structure to get things done on a larger level, super, super helpful and very, very transferable from having the kind of commercial understanding of what running a business looks like. But my God, if you're the kind of person who has creative problem solving at the heart of what they're doing and you value independence and things like that, corporate, absolutely not the place for you. I just felt like such a cog. It was miserable.
Yeah. No, it's tough. So you and Alice decided to start something, and you said, I mean, it sounds like it happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Why Alice?
So, okay, this is a really interesting one. People, I think, always go down the rabbit hole of, if I'm going to start a business with someone, it needs to be with someone similar.
Right.
With me and Alice, we had big mistake, as you've probably
I've experienced. Yes, I've experienced that. Yeah.
Me and Alice have such polarizing skill sets.
Right.
So she looks after the marketing side of the business. She was ASOS, L'Oreal, did paid marketing, SEO for like multi-million-pound brands.
Nice.
So that was her expertise. Mine was always very commercial propositions, business cases, go-to-market strategy. And before we launched Pimentae or started even thinking about it, we loved the fact that we had such different skill sets. And I went into it not knowing a huge amount about the marketing side. She was like, I do not have a huge amount of commercial acumen in that sense. And we thought, okay, this is epic. And then I also just think from a personality standpoint as well, I am a lot more direct and hectic and fiery. Alice is so relaxed. She's so chill, the most grounding person. And yeah, it's like yin and yang type situation. Yeah. So that really, really worked. The kind of diversity in terms of what we brought to the table, I'd say. Amazing.
The first, you were sort of saying that you kind of came up with the idea through consuming the idea, which is obviously a great way to start. But for you guys, obviously not started the business before, did you have people around you who had sort of trodden the path a little bit that you were relying on? Was it kind of, because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, I've heard the conversation a lot, and it's kind of funny to be around because I've started a few things and some of them have been successful, some of them have definitely not. But in the sense of doing that, it's that idea of like, oh, we should start a business doing that thing. And it's really exciting. And I personally love the naivety of that time. Like it's so, that's the funnest part I personally think of being a business owner, is the very first bit.
The blind optimism.
Yeah, it's great. But for you guys, was there, you wanted to do this thing. Was there any kind of one steering that direction for you, or were you steering each other?
So really interestingly, I think the only example that I could give at the time who was an entrepreneur who was young doing phenomenal things in the space was Grace Beverley.
Nice.
Other than that, we were 24 and 25 years old. We had come from university where, like I said, it was very much climb the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
When I spoke to my parents about wanting to quit my corporate job and launch something, they honestly looked at me as though I had murdered the dog. They just couldn't reconcile it in their brain, especially for their generation as well. I don't think being entrepreneurial in the way that we were thinking about was the done thing. And there wasn't anyone in our wider friendship group really doing it. Right. So it came from this internal fire that we had the tenacity, we had the kind of skill set between us to do something more. And I think ultimately we just wanted that fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I think something that we all overlook quite a lot is we are on this planet for how we feel, how I wake up feeling every single day, rather than living what the optics should look like for someone else.
Yeah.
And why would I wake up every day and go to a corporate job just because it's the done thing to do? It didn't feel right, it didn't feel good, and we didn't want to do it. So that's ultimately why it was both of us.
I feel like Grace has inspired a lot of people. What was inspiring for her about you? Sorry, what was inspiring about her?
I think it was just how she showed up in such a real way. It didn't feel too distant from who we were.
Right.
She was a similar age. Well, she was a lot younger than us. She was juggling the kind of
corporate side of
things.
She is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think she was like in her early teens when she started. But I think now she's still like mid-20s, which is crazy.
Amazing.
But I think it was just, I think the gap between what, blocks a lot of people from going down the entrepreneurial journey is they see somebody and they're like, I could never do that. That is an aspiration that is so far-fetched. But with Grace, she was young, she was hanging out in similar circles to us, she still liked going out, she kind of trod the corporate path as well, and then juggled this entrepreneurial side of things. It was gritty, it was scrappy, and I was like, I'm gritty and scrappy. This could work.
Amazing.
It felt within reach.
Yeah. I think I'm right in saying that you were kind of told there's no place for RTDs as well within the category. But before you go into that, maybe, was the original idea to be an RTD? Was that the initial concept with no other alternatives?
So we actually launched in a 50cl glass bottle,
right?
Pre-batched spicy margarita. That was our flagship. So if we're talking technically, RTD means can in the space, and then you've got ready to serve, which is bottle. So we actually started in a bottle, but yeah, the market was still very, very heavily dominated by kind of 6 to 7% drinks rather than 14.5%. And that's where we were kind of trying to push. So there wasn't a huge amount of noise in the space. And it was hugely, hugely dominated by the incumbents like Diageo and Bacardi, which is why a lot of people were like, they laughed at us when we said we were going to do it. They were like, ha! They're like, you guys think you're going to be able to kind of compete with that?
Yeah.
And that blind optimism kicked in there that we were talking about.
When you're walking into something where obviously you're going in there with some blind optimism, which is always great, but when you're going into that and people are starting to say no to the idea and then what I would call the naive idea, which is amazing, was there any doubt that was really settling in for you guys?
I honestly think it's ingrained in my DNA. When someone says no, like all I hear is yes. I'm like, I will change your mind. Like I will do it anyway. And I think in a space where people are constantly drumming the statistic, like 9 out of 10 startups fail, it's just something, I think it's internal. Like either you're born with the resilience and the mindset to do it. It's purely a mindset thing. But there wasn't a point where I was like, this isn't going to work. And still 5 years down the line, I've had my moments where I'm like, this is fucking hard. It's soul destroying. Like, why am I voluntarily doing this?
Yeah.
I've never said to myself, this won't work.
Nice. We were talking about it before we started filming around, like just I think the culture in the UK of failure and also like giving it a go versus the US. We were having an interesting conversation about the US market, which I'm sure we'll get onto in some way. But do you think that is one of the biggest problems in entrepreneurship if you're in the UK is the negativity and the kind of the doubt? Because that stat is so common, right? That you mentioned is spoken about all the time. We're constantly talking about failure in a really negative way. But do you think that's a big problem in terms of other brands and other opportunities that might be in the future?
100%. I think from the get-go, if we like take it back to even school, you are not given the toolkit to succeed in an entrepreneurial space. Nobody is teaching you the basics of what the kind of financial infrastructure of a business should look like, how to manage your finances, what's a P&L, what's an equity structure, all of these kinds of things. And if you don't have the toolkit to do that from the beginning, you're not going to find that many entrepreneurs who want to make that journey because it feels so unattainable. And then off the back of that, you marry the negative media. You've got all of these phenomenal businesses that are in growth, and then the media, all they decide to pull out is they made a £2 million loss this year. How terrible! Without
they
kind
did
of
that with Grace, actually, didn't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that.
When often there is such a logical operational reason that needed to happen, whether it's investments in stores that are going to grow your brand, like, and all of these kinds of things, it will always be jumping on the worst possible outcome. And I don't know why we cultivate such an awful environment for this. But I mean, I guess the UK has not been hugely like pro-entrepreneurialism with everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? I mean, like I'm of the opinion that like I think the school system is deeply fucked, but I don't have a solution to it, so I don't really have that much of a strong opinion because I think it's really difficult to teach 350 individuals what they need and what they're going to do. And you've kind of got to go with the mass, which is most people will get a job. Like that's kind of the difficult part of it. But I do also feel that when it comes to the negativity of press or people talking things and platforms like LinkedIn, etc., it is more around like the fact that I think as a society in the UK, we just love the negativity. Like I think there's just an element of that, which I think comes from so many different places. And, you know, gossip's a big area, you know, it just comes from those environments. The US is so different because they see failure in a completely different way.
100%.
And I think it's more of like I think it's a generational shift that's got to happen in many ways, but I don't think there's an easy solution to it. The one thing that's got to keep going is that people have got to keep trying, and especially building businesses. Like we need a lot of that entrepreneurial stuff.
100%. I mean, what is nice is you can see in the UK that there are loads of grants, accelerators, things like that, which is a phenomenal springboard, I guess, for people who haven't done it before. But I so get why it would be intimidating if you don't feel like you've got the skills, and then you also don't feel like you'll be fairly rewarded if it does go well, and you'll be hugely scrutinized if it doesn't.
That's tough.
Right.
Like, yeah, and that's probably why it's so hard to take the risk. Week one of being a thing. Week one of the brand. Do you remember it?
Week one.
Were you still working while you were building it? Sorry, actually, that's probably a better question.
Yes.
Right.
So I was working at Sky for 6 months.
Okay.
Before I quit, and it was during lockdown. And a lot of people, as I kind of think you were saying before when we were speaking, I think a lot of people said that COVID was this horrible prison for them, but for me it actually gave me a lot of freedom, because it meant I didn't have like a manager over my shoulder. So when me and Alice, and I've actually still got the we did a LinkedIn post on it, it's so funny, we made a screen recording of all of the text when we first came up with the idea.
Nice.
And the back and forth is so funny, like it's just a silly text chat. But literally from the day where we were like, why don't we try and make like a pre-batched like Pimentae thing, and it was just the silliest conversation ever. And then we were like, wait, nobody's doing it. Wait, we were like researching, nobody's done it before. Oh my god, like there are all of these grocers. Wait, where do we buy our tequila? Like everything was spiraling.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing, I've got a print screen of it, is this Word doc that I made of tick lists to start your own business, and it's completely legit. It was on my Sky laptop at the time, the dates there everywhere, and it was like, build a business plan, right, to pitch deck, get product shots of product that we didn't have, like develop a recipe. What tequila am I going to use? Do I have to pay tequila supplier a % every time we sell a bottle? Like all of this like crazy stuff. And it was just, I think like you said, those are the most magical moments, because it was ignorance, it was blind optimism. It was like, we can do this. Nobody's done it before. Like, but yeah, the juggling for 6 months was... It didn't feel that exhausting, because I guess what else was I going to be doing? Netflix and chilling. Like when I closed my Sky laptop, I just opened it back up and I was doing something that gave me this like fire. I was this is gonna be meaningful, and I know it's gonna be meaningful because I trust myself, and I trust myself to do what I say I'm gonna do, and I also trust Alice. And it just honestly was. I even get goosebumps talking about it now. I was just like, it was the most. I felt so happy that I had found something that had brought me so much fulfillment, which I think a lot of people aren't necessarily in search of, like they don't care that much in terms of work. They just want to get a good salary and go. But I knew that from a very young age, how I apply myself to things, I was like, I need to build something extraordinary. And that was the kind of start of it.
I get it. When was the first time you started telling people about it?
I think it was maybe 2 months in, because as soon as you tell people, that's when it becomes a reality. And that's like quite bold as well. So
you and Alice didn't really tell anyone, like family stuff, like the whole lot? You were just like, let's see how we get where we get to. We
registered the business. I've got photos of me and Alice kind of the first time that we introduced it to our friendship group. Me and Alice spent 4 hours building little sample bottles named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then like 7 of each, all with varying levels of agave, tequila, to kind of like have the perfect picante. And that was the first time that we told our friends, like, you're coming to our house for what you think is like a drinks evening, but it was a focus group. It's focus group.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Gave them questionnaires. They had all of the different samples, and we were like, you need to rate it on taste. Is it too sweet? What would you pay for this? Like all of this kind of stuff. And that was the first time we spoke it into existence. And I think it was perfect, because I think once you've got the buy-in from your friends, and once you also tell people you're doing something, you can't go back on yourself. Otherwise you just look like one of those flaky people who are like, I'm going to do this. And it's just like, oh, let's went to another idea kind of thing. And that's not the kind of person I am at all. So we definitely spoke it into existence.
Yeah. Was the kind of, when you started telling people about it, is that when people started having opinions?
Yeah. So
how did you deal with the opinions?
My parents, who I love and adore, but also appreciate, they're from a completely different generation. So there was an element of me that knew there would be some rebuttal.
I like how you got the first bit in there. That's important.
Yeah. They didn't understand it at all. They were like, you're planning on launching your own business to sell tequila? Like, they just kind of thought I was 24 and I liked drinking, and I was just like starting a drinks business so me and my friends could all drink, which I mean, to some extent has happened, but just in a more structured way. And then all of our like immediate friendship group, so positive, thought it was amazing. But then you do get those people who are like, and this is where you start to see the negative sentiment from people who aren't that close to you. Really? Like you're starting a business. Like what business do you have starting a business? So there's that kind of like a weird element where people can't be happy for you because
They're jealous.
maybe they wanted to do it themselves and they didn't have the gumption to take the leap.
Yeah.
So it was interesting at the beginning. Like, people are excited on the surface at the start because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think the real tell is how people react when you're doing well. And that's always interesting to see.
I do feel like there's never there's not another reason at the start of something that people are negative apart from jealousy.
Yeah.
And when it comes to starting something, like, I just don't think there's any other, like, even if you're like, I'm going to become a singer, even if you're going to be like, I want to become a professional athlete, or I'm going to start a business or whatever it might be, even starting a podcast, like, there's no other part of it for me that if someone's negative about it, that's close to you, that is like any other emotion than just jealousy. And I also think there's like, some people will be like, oh, I just don't think it's right for you. It's like, there's an element of just try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You know, like that's a huge part of it for sure. So try and remember week one. What was week one really like? Obviously, there's lots of maybe week one of going full time as well.
Okay, week one of going full time was so funny because I just laughed at myself. So the first thing I did was I went to Selfridges to see what...
Good start to the week. Yeah, solid start.
Not for personal reasons. I went to go and see what their kind of ready-to-drink cocktail shelf looked like, because I always told myself, when we launch, I need to have a really clear headspace in terms of like the 3 listings that I want to get. So I need to study them and make sure that every single decision I make, starting from now, will ladder up to me landing this listing. And Selfridges was on that list.
Right.
So I went there to see what they had on shelf. So when I finally found the buyer, I could be like, this is what you've got. This is where the gap is. So I can remember moseying on down to Selfridges, taking loads of pictures of the shelf that I could use to like integrate into a deck. The next... couple of days was like me bouncing from various little like coffee shops, feeling super proud of myself on my laptop. I definitely didn't have like 8 or 9 hours worth of things to be doing. Like, I look back on it and I'm like, bless your soul. I put set my desktop to the Pimentae background. It was like, now it's official.
So when I first started, I know, like, the first week I did, I like made a business card. It was like the most classic thing to do. It's like, you make a business card first. That's the start of a business. But I know what you mean. It's like you're doing things that you're like, this is important to do.
Exactly.
Whereas now you'd be like, this is priority.
Exactly. And there were, I can remember so many, when we had like launched across socials and things like that. At the time, it felt really exciting, but we'd get Vogue reaching out to us being like, do you want to pay £2,000 for this? I was like, Vogue have reached out. This is the best thing. It's like, no, you're paying to be in that kind of thing. So I think it was very much wrapping my head around like, right, what's this going to look like? What's my day-to-day going to be? But yeah, when I look back on it, it's absolutely ridiculous. I had no idea what I was doing. I was 24. I just quit my corporate job at Sky. I was loving the idea of saying that I was doing Pimentae more than actually like knowing what I was doing at all.
For you, like, was some of it way different than you thought it would be at the start? Like, and that's not just around it being more difficult, but in terms of like how things work.
Yes, I think nothing can prepare you for the kind of like operational complexity of it all.
Right.
I think everyone just sees the shiny, polished product, but they don't understand that you have to source the glass. What design are we going to have on it? What do we want our brand to stand for? How do we get the liquid to taste right? How do we create a product that is commercially viable so we can actually scale this thing? All of these, like, every single time I made a decision, and I think this is part of the reason I think I was made to be entrepreneurial, is my brain is always like, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
What do I need to be doing in 15 steps? So even from the beginning, I was trying to work out, when we were building our product, how do I make sure our cogs are in a place where we're going to have a gross margin of 40% blended? Because I can remember reading this one time that that's what you need to do in order to have a business that's, you know, going to get the attention from a big global conglomerate. So I had all of these ideas going around my head all the time. And I think in the beginning, when we first launched, it was that kind of product development bit that I didn't anticipate taking so much time. I was like, can't we just like build the recipe really quickly and like get a label that looks semi-nice?
Do you think it'd be like a month?
Yeah.
How long was it really?
6? No.
Yeah.
Again,
So
blind optimism.
Right. Yeah.
Blind optimism. And we were trying to do all of this in COVID as well. So
yeah, of course.
Where we ended up getting our first batch developed was in Scotland, and it was all of the crazy rules that were coming out where it was like, you can travel.
Tequila is not a thing I would have thought happened.
No, it was, they had there was this facility called Startup Drinks Lab, where they would literally like hold your hand throughout the whole process. Which I was like, perfect, I need my hand held, like, please help. But there were like, Boris was coming out with all the crazy rules where it was like, you can travel here, but you have to be
Boris Johnson. Sorry, who the fuck is Boris? No, fair enough. I forgot about him.
he was creating the most crazy rules on travel. So getting to Scotland, it meant like we could travel like halfway up the country, but then the rules would change and all of this kind of stuff. Having to try and do product development over camera was absolutely crazy. So there were so many different obstacles that came to play. And I think that is the part that people underestimate. They just see you going live with the fancy bottle and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, to do this, we had to pour our life savings into it. We had to find an artist to hand paint all of the artwork, had to find like someone to build out our logo, had to trademark it, had to get all of the IP rights.
Yeah.
So much of this stuff only comes to fruition when you're doing it. And there is no playbook or like toolbook. And like, here are all of the things that you guys should be thinking. It's just when there's an obstacle, then you deal with it. When someone says you need to speak to a lawyer about this, then you speak to the lawyer. When someone says you need to take 7 exams to be able to even sell alcohol, then you have to do the exams. So there was an element of excitement, but also I was like, this is going to be hard. But I loved it.
Is there anything you would do differently if you were starting again in those first couple of months and stages?
Well, it's so difficult to say because I think having to go through every single obstacle gave me a realistic view on how to just be a lot more resilient. But
do you think you weren't resilient before?
I think the level of resilience you have in a corporate is very different to, you know, the obstacles that you overcome as a founder. It's your own money in the business. It's your brand reputation. It's your career and all of those kinds of things. But if I had to do anything differently, I think it would be to be less focused on, you know, what 5 years time looks like and just be like getting something out that is good enough and having a minimal viable product that you can kind of get feedback on is fine. Like perfect is the enemy of good enough. And at the beginning, if you're constantly finding a reason not to launch because something's not 100% ready, it's going to slow you down and you need to be fast.
Did that happen for you guys?
I think there were definitely times where like we didn't have the right product photography. We didn't feel like the website was polished enough. We were actually exactly, or like, do we need to do one more like iteration of the recipe to get it to, you know, like XYZ? We had loads of those moments, and I think 6 months is still pretty fast from ideation to launch, but I think if we were prepared to be a little bit scrappier, it would have been like slightly faster. But I am a perfectionist. It's one of my. I hate myself for it.
How was your and Alice's relationship in the first kind of 6 months? Tested at all?
Tested, but as I said, Alice is the most relaxed human being in the world, and I'm just like, I have an argument with a wall.
Right.
So she's very, very grounded. But I think working in such an intimate capacity with just one other human, you have to develop this crazy sense of trust with them. Like this is like the closest thing that I have to feeling maternal. And it's like, I have to trust that in your time, you're going to be doing absolutely everything you can do to drive the business forward because we are the only people pushing it. It's not like at Sky where I had a manager where if I was like, you know, sick, they would kind of keep the ball rolling. It's like, this is me and you, and every single win, every single failure is a result of us. So like, let's fucking get it right as many times as we can. But I've honestly got to say, like in the 5 years that me and Alice have been doing this, and especially at the beginning, we have never had a huge falling out.
Really?
We've definitely had like miscommunications. We operate in very different ways. She's chill. She kind of like, you know, she'll operate on a more like relaxed level. Whereas I'm like, if I ask for something, I ideally want it 10 minutes ago. And that's just how I've always been as a person. Yeah. So in those moments, it's a bit like, okay, right, we both need to level with each other. And we actually put in a like weekly cadence call to be like, how can we work better with each other? And we would come to the call and she'd be like, okay, these are all of the things that you're doing that I think it would be better if you approached it like this and vice versa, just to make sure that there was no resentment building in the background. But yeah, we've never had like a crazy falling out, which is great.
That is great. Touch wood. I imagine there's been setbacks in the early stages, right? How would you kind of show up for each other in those moments? Because it's quite easy as co-founders and people that have been on the show and people I know, sometimes when you're both in the mud, you can't really be there for each other, but you kind of need the other person to be there and you're going to react differently, right? So how did you experience that?
So first of all, anyone who is a solo founder, and are you a solo founder? Yeah. hats off. I've got no idea how people do not have a sounding board or like someone to at least half the burden with.
Yeah.
But there's actually a really specific example where like Alice was just absolutely phenomenal, and I can talk about this now without wanting to have like a panic attack.
Okay.
But we won our first listing with Waitrose. It was our first national retailer.
And that was your first listing completely?
No, that was our first national.
What a start.
Oh yeah. Run before we can walk.
Yeah.
This was, I think it was a year and a half into Pimentae, which is, we were so happy with that. And our manufacturer at the time had made a colossal blending issue, which had meant that one of the SKUs that were going live in Waitrose, one of our cans, had it pretty much just tasted like absolute rocket fuel. They had not mixed it properly, and it tasted terrible.
So was it alcohol, or was it just like rough?
A bit of both. They hadn't blended it properly, so the alcohol hadn't dispersed equally within the tank. And when they gave us a sample to taste, because they took it from the top, it tasted fine. But because they hadn't blended it properly, the liquid at the bottom tasted completely different. So we didn't realize.
So you had actually tasted that batch?
Yeah, we had tasted it. We had approved it. It was all fine. We were the only reason that we knew that something was wrong, and kind of similar to the story you just told me. I was about to get on a flight to South Africa. First 2 weeks I was going to have off, was feeling just like, okay, cool, everything's in a good place before Waitrose.
Yeah.
Alice had got some stock sent to her house just from the batch, which was kind of typical for the...
Which was going to go to Waitrose.
Exactly.
Right, got it.
That's what the manufacturer does. They'll send us a case just so we've got it. All of the stock had been packed and sent to Waitrose already. So
How much stock was it?
It was 25 grand worth of stock. It was just for the first order.
Oh my God.
And Alice tried it, and it tasted, when I say it tasted terrible, it was like pure tequila, but worse. It was just awful. It tasted terrible. And we've got a 15% delicious, smooth cocktail. And Alice was like, I didn't know whether to call you or not, Wynter. But obviously all of that stock has gone to Waitrose. It's now on shelf. And
they'd already put it on the shelves?
They'd already put it on the shelves.
Do they not try it before they, like, is with what you guys did, or are they just, there's a whole process of like, we're getting the delivery, it's going on?
Yeah, so where we got our product manufactured, we had to do an emergency batch just because we lost our production slot with our normal manufacturer. So it was just like a one-off time with these guys, and I'm not gonna name. But as you can tell, I'm so over it. But anyway, no, Waitrose don't have to sample that. Like, our manufacturers should have that all covered with
so they're the ones that have done the quality control.
Exactly.
Right.
At the start, at the end of the batch. And what happened next was a very defining moment for me and Alice, when this was our largest national grocer listing. Like, our reputations were on the line. It was rolling out 250 Waitrose stores. And we had to call every single Waitrose stores and visit the ones that we could to get the product off of shelf, because Waitrose HQ could not send out a mass recall email without us getting charged like 40 grand.
You would get charged for that?
Yeah, because it was a recall, a product recall.
Which obviously cost them money.
Exactly.
So did you have to call Waitrose and say, we've got a problem? They said, well, if you've got this problem, you've got two options. You get it off the shelf, or we do.
Yep. Pretty much.
Hell, that's stressful.
And I'm such a freak with all things liquid quality. Even if I was to put one of our margaritas in front of you and you said it tasted delicious and I knew it was slightly off, I'd be like, no, it's not blended correctly, like not proving it, not. So this for me is like the worst thing that could ever happen. Alice, so calm, so amazing. She's just like, okay, Wynter, this is what the plan is. We've got all of the stores here. These are the ones. We're going to separate them between all of the team members. We're going to call these ones. This is what we're going to say. This is the script. Because my brain was just like fireworks.
You're the actor?
Yeah. And I was like, who can I scream at? Obviously.
Check out the Waitrose in the airport first. Probably.
Exactly. Thankfully, no. So yeah, she just comes with so much calm, and she's always like, Wynter, we can manage the relationships, we can get the stock off of the shelf, and she is always just such a fantastic voice of reason. And whenever we've had any other issues moving forward, I'm like, if we can deal with that and get all of that product off of shelf and it's fine, and we've maintained relationships and all of these things, there is honestly nothing that we can't do.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just phenomenal in the face of really, really adverse situations.
Did you still go on the plane?
Yes.
Did it all work itself out for the best at the end of it?
It all worked itself out. We were able to sort everything out. But yeah, for me, I was just like, this is the worst possible thing that could happen. It's the first pallets that are arriving in Waitrose. Like,
I guess for you guys as well, it's always about test runs, right? So like the thing that was, what was the biggest thing in your head that was going to go wrong at that point? In terms of it's already gone wrong, what's the worst outcome from here?
So what I thought would happen was Waitrose would lose kind of all trust in us, and then that would tarnish our relationship in terms of growing distribution, like launching new products with them. But most importantly, I think it was the consumer perception. This was the first time that customers could get us nationally. Like, Waitrose have stores across the whole country. And if their first experience with Pimentae is a product that tastes like rocket fuel, they're not going to come back. Like, all it takes is a little bit of word of mouth for, you know, rate of sale to nosedive. And that's the thing that keeps you on shelf, rate of sale. And if it's not there, like, that's that.
It can be game over.
Yeah.
Do you know what? On this show, we've had 3 stories that are very similar to that.
Oh, good.
So you're
It's
not
like
the
that.
only
It's not
ones.
only me.
Yeah. A guy called Sam who now runs a great brand called Batch.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the show.
Used to be a Punchy, right?
Yeah, so it was a Punchy,
Uh-huh.
where they put the wrong product in a can, and it was like I think it was meant to be like a really refreshing citrusy juice, and it was actually like, I think he's described it as baby Guinness in a can type thing. So like completely different thing. It just it's one of those things, right? Like as a founder, especially when you're starting, it's like, how do you react to these things that are completely outside your control? Because screaming down the phone to the supplier isn't always going to fix it, right? And it's kind of having that adjustment.
Yeah.
You guys kind of went onto the festival scene pretty quickly, right? But it wasn't a very easy journey from what I understand going into festivals. Firstly, I imagine festivals felt like quite a good synergy between the brand and what you were building and probably where you wanted to get cans in hands, right? Tell me about that journey and that decision.
So I actually think we owe a lot of our growth to the festival space for many, many reasons. So when we first launched Pimentae, everybody was saying events, festivals, you can't make any cash from this. It is purely marketing, and it's the marketing budget. Me and Alice very quickly realized a commercial structure that we could put in place to turn it into a profitable revenue stream. Like you said, mass customer acquisition channel. For us, it was the kind of start of the funnel to get people into our community, get them engaging with the brand, and then we could use, you know, over the course of 1 year, it's 2 million consumers coming to multiple different festival bars that we would have.
Have you that many?
Yeah, because we would, so at the moment we do like 20 to 30 festivals every summer.
Wow.
So everything from like the Glasgow Luxury Campsites, Wimbledon House, Henley, Regatta, Polo in the Park, Taste London, Crank Brother Highlights, Waterworks, you name it. We've got a beautiful 360 tropical Tulum-esque activation there. So I always say, like, imagine teleporting yourself to a beach club in Tulum. We've got the branded VW wrapped in Pimentae artwork. We've got our saxophonist in there.
Yeah.
We've got DJ Willie G. And then we've got the kind of rustic 360 bar with the 6 tap balls, so we can just plug our kegs into there. And we create this immersive brand world because you probably know more than anybody. Consumers buy into moments to connect. They buy into experience. Like, gone are the days where mass distribution alone wins. We very strategically built this immersive brand world and built this cult-like community that we have now in the festival space, all whilst doing it in a very profitable way. And I just think it's a really, really unique way to not just push a product in somebody's face, but it's like, come and join us, come enter this gorgeous environment where you feel like you're anywhere else but the UK, and then you can enjoy Pimentae. And that's where they build the brand affinity and that really intangible feeling that you can't quite put your finger on. But when they see Pimentae on shelf in Waitrose, they'll go back, I remember having a Pimentae, listening to Tunde play the saxophone. And it's that intangible connection that you just can't build anywhere else. No out-of-home campaign will do that. That is a moment, that is a memory. And that's because we've emotionally connected with our consumer.
Yeah.
And again, we do it in a profitable way.
How do you do it in a profitable way when most people don't?
So certain festivals have different commercial revenue models, and that's the first thing. So we pick the ones that aren't trying to charge us 100 grand to just breathe in their airspace. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts.
I'm involved in a very small drinks brand, and they were built in festivals in a Prosecco space. And like some of the numbers that I've seen quoted at festivals is like mental.
It's the biggest form of daylight robbery. We need to like charge these people or report them somewhere to the higher
It is crazy because also a lot of newer brands, like, and that's kind of why I'm asking, is because when you're naive building a brand, like a lot of brands go, oh, I'll spend 10 grand on a pitch. I'll make that back because there's 3,000 people coming. And that's where it becomes deeply unprofitable for so many people.
Exactly. And I think unless you have absolutely nailed the kind of one commercial model. So are you going to retain 100% of the revenue, or is a third party going to operate your bar? I think that's step number one.
Yes.
Step number two, are you creating a sticky experience, not one where people are going to kind of come and buy one glass, but how are you creating an atmosphere where people want to spend the whole night there, which is what we do at Taste London, probably our flagship. Oceans of people dancing, enjoying Pimentae.
Were you guys there last year?
Yeah.
I feel like I did see a little festival happening inside the festival.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And people come back to Taste and they're like, I specifically want to go to the Pimentae bar.
Yeah.
And that's the affinity that we've built. And I think that's why festivals are such a fantastic place. If you can get the model right, mass eyeballs, mass sampling, get all of these people into your community. And I think that's the difference between kind of building an alcohol brand where if you disappear, people aren't going to care, and creating a brand that really aligns to people's morals and lifestyles and values, where they're like, you make me feel something. You're creating a lifestyle that I aspire to have. I want to be part of this community.
Yeah.
And that's why festivals have been phenomenal for us. They make up 25% of our sales mix. We do it in a profitable way.
25%?
Yeah.
Jeez.
And it's a rinse and repeat model. We've done it every year for the last 5 years. Our community grows, our CRM database grows. The data capture is more cost effective than any out-of-home marketing campaign that you're going to be doing where people are just looking. Yeah. We can find them, capture them. We know they're enjoying Pimentae, and then send them straight to our trade partners and our retail partners.
And then the growth happens from there.
And that's the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's incredible. It must cost a few quid to do that though, right? And especially when you were starting, because you didn't know it was going to work.
We have, I will tell you another one of our horror stories if you'd like, and it is about the festival space. So we went live with Pimentae in March 2021, quit our corporate jobs like a couple of months after that. And then a festival in the Cotswolds dropped us a line saying, look, if you want to have a 10 by 10 meter activation space, run a bar, this is what it's going to cost, 20 grand. At the time, we had 10K in our account. I know this is the blind optimism kicking in again. We had 10K in our account. We put the remaining 10K on an Amex. I'd crunched the numbers based off of kind of footfall, some benchmark figures I was able to get. And I was like, if we do this right, we can generate 65 grand in top line revenue. So ideally, I think at the time it was like 30 grand in profit.
By the time you staffed it and...
Exactly, cost of goods, all of that kind of stuff. All of our advisors were like, do not do it. Me and Alice were like, no, this 60 grand sounds pretty good.
Were the numbers right if you look back at them now?
The numbers were right, yeah. The numbers were right. And it's because we were doing it in such a scrappy way as well. It's not like the build and break team that we've got now and the staff. Sure. We ran the bars, we camped for 6 nights, our friends from university were staffing the bars, and the most hilarious part about the whole thing was we had one product on the bar, a spicy margarita. That was it. And an orange juice and lemonade for the children that we were charging at £8 with an umbrella in it. Just, you know. I know, but Cotswold consumer.
Wow.
So
£8.
I know, daylight robbery. And we did the festival. That was the first festival we'd ever done.
Yeah.
And we hit the 60 grand in top line revenue. And the best and biggest learning from that was, one, we can execute festivals in a profitable way. Mm-hmm. The following summer, we went on to do another 10 to 15 festivals, Taste London. That was the first time we did it. And that was where Distl Ventures prospected us, because they said there are no brands in the alcohol space that are activating like Pimentae. We think that you guys are onto something with this kind of experience-led brand world that you're creating. Yeah. We later found out we outsold Patrón at Taste London because of creating this immersive. Yep. Jeez. And they had spent 250 grand on their activation, which was nuts.
Oh my God.
And that's why Distl was so interested in Pimentae. They were like, you've been able to kind of create something that these brands who are throwing £300,000 at an activation can't.
Yeah.
And that's when we realized that big budgets don't equal success. It's knowing your consumer, knowing your proposition, and creating an experience that is so sticky that people can't think of being anywhere else apart from there.
Where's the horror story in that?
Oh.
I was thinking that sounds great. That sounds like a great time. You made 60 bags.
So the horror story, it felt like a horror story because we had quit our jobs at that time. We had 2 months to figure out how we were going to run a bar, and we had never run a bar before. And it was that, I think, was the make or break moment, because we had no money after that. We had put everything into the pitch fee and leveraged that debt with Amex. And it was like it paid off. But at the time, cortisol levels were so high. And I just always felt like there was something to prove to everyone that was a bit like, okay, like, how are they going to do it? And we did it. But that 2-month period where we were planning and figuring out how the hell you run a bar with like payment portals, I was like, I've got no business doing this. Like, what's going on here? How am I running a 10 meter by 10 meter bar at huge festivals? This makes no sense.
But it was a lot of fun though.
Honestly, doing it with our uni friends, serving everybody. We had the DJ there. It was just the best thing.
Yeah.
Like watching our brand come to life in that way. I think me and Alice realized we're sat on a really good thing here. Like if we can do that with just a spicy margarita, what can we do? And we've got an entire range and this is developed and we've got a build team. It was just like a little future look into the crystal ball of like what things could look like for us.
Well, I guess it's kind of the proof that the MVP works, right?
Yeah.
That's, you kind of did it pretty quickly and understood pretty rapidly that it would work and there's legs to it. And you mentioned Distl Ventures. For those that don't know, could you explain what that is?
Yes. So Distl Ventures is essentially a pre-accelerator program and they are the investment arm of Diageo. And they essentially look at very young, early stage brands, some pre-revenue, some kind of just at ideation phase, some post-revenue. And essentially they look at brands, they look to bring brands into their program who they believe have, the criteria to potentially globally scale. And one of the criteria, I guess, for Diageo at the time was tequila, super high growth, and RTD. And Pimentae just happens to sit at the intersection of both at the time. So, yeah.
Is this 22?
2022.
2022. So like the American market at this point is going pretty crazy on tequila, right?
Yes.
You've got the kind of 818s of the world, Casamigos of the world.
Casamigos, yes. 818 wasn't about then, I don't think.
Fine. But it was like kind of, there was a lot happening in the States.
100%. Like it's still the most consumed spirit out there by a country mile when we launched Pimentae.
Yeah.
And I think that's the aim of a program like Distl Ventures. They want to bring brands under their wing, like whilst they're young and low in value and things like that.
So they approached you at the festival?
Yeah, they prospected us there. They prospected us at Taste London. And then there was kind of this whole process that came after in terms of we had to like present to 20 members of the international Diageo team. And we, again, like 25 at this point, like, I thought we were just running bars. Like, how have I landed in this mess now? But again, so incredible because I think that gave us a real insight into these are all of the things that Diageo were looking for. And I think it just gave us that extra bit of credibility and motivation that they've got eyes on us. They see what we're doing as valuable. And if we can kind of have their name on the literature and that credibility, that's going to be such an incredible springboard to kind of get Pimentae out there.
Yeah.
And at the time, Distl Ventures, they were offering kind of varying ticket sizes to inject into the business,
Right.
To allow them to grow. There wasn't kind of like any crazy equity structures attached to it. It was all on a safe note. It was like really good for a brand of our size to kind of get the cash in, allow us to grow without being tied to them taking a majority share in the business.
I was going to say, just for context, safe note being
cash now, equity later at a certain conversion point. So we had to do X, Y, Z in capital for that to trigger.
And you pitched them to 20 people, and I imagine that was what, like 45 minutes an hour? Was that the first big pitch that you guys had done? Was that the kind of the biggest thing you'd pitched for the brand at the stage?
So there was one pitch that we did before then, and it was for, I can remember it was Brown Rudnick at the time because it was Camila Vasquez who had just won the Johnny Depp trial. Really weird association, but it was a pitch to it was a pitch to them. They had like an FMB Investor Day, and this was just post-COVID, so people weren't doing like live pitches in front of people, but they had 50 like high net worth individuals in a room. Wow. And me and Alice got roped into it like 24 hours before to pitch, and there was an award for best pitch and then best product, and Pimentae ended up winning them both. So that was the first pitch that we did, and we met some high net worths in the room that later went on to invest, which was great.
Fantastic.
And then the Diageo one, that was the kind of most formal pitch that we had done into the Pimentae journey.
What did you focus on in a 45-minute pitch to Diageo at that time?
So it was the macro and micro environment in terms of really understanding what tequila and RTD looked like and what we thought that meant for us. What was our kind of defensible USP in the market? And at that time, we were the only brand doing 20-litre kegs, cans, and bottles, which meant diversified revenue streams, which is great for investors. They don't like over-reliance.
Were they, as a brand, I imagine they're very focused on the commercials as much as they are the brand?
Yes, both, which was interesting.
Even 18?
I would say probably more on brand at that point because we were still 18 months,
as well.
Exactly. It's still pretty early stage.
It's different now.
Exactly. Whereas now everyone's like, be profitable or you will die. then brand, because obviously I think that's the thing that a lot of the larger incumbents struggle to do, create a brand that really engages with the consumer. It's all pretty traditional and archaic and commercial, isn't it, in the alcohol space? So yeah, it was also on supply chain, making sure we understood what like the longevity in tequila looked like, how we would import in bulk, and then about me and Alice as well, because it was us who was running the business. And I think the main thing is we didn't create the margarita. Like, ideas are really easy to copy. I think how you execute it and the people behind it are the things that you cannot copy. So they were, wanting to find out about us and what our visions were, how we work together and things like that.
What was the reaction from the conversation immediately? Like, obviously this was in person, right? So you're seeing...
Oh no, Diageo, this was on laptop because it was all the like global people. There were people from the US joining and all that.
Harder though, right? Like for you guys running through this, like your role in the business now feels like a lot of pitching, right? And a lot of like that, recycling of information and that element. But doing this for the first time, do you remember the experience, or does it feel like a bit of a flow state kind of went through it?
I can remember it because we had a festival the whole weekend before, and we got back on a Sunday at 9 p.m. and we had the pitch at like 11 o'clock on the Monday. And we had done so much prep. So Distl Ventures work with you for like 3 months to make sure you're like as pitch ready as possible. But they can't guarantee you'll get the investment. So Distl Ventures kind of like preps you.
Yeah.
And then the kind of like crazy thing about the structure of it is you pitch. They ask their questions, they jump off of the call, and then you just have an hour where you sit and wait, and they call you back and tell you whether you get the investment or not.
That quickly?
Yeah, after an hour.
And you're going for a certain amount at this point?
Yes.
You have that all out in the pitch and that kind of thing?
Exactly. And I can remember feeling nervous, but I think the overarching feeling was this is where our journey begins if we get this. Like, if we can have the backing of the world's largest alcohol powerhouse attached to us, like this early into our journey, this is everything that I've needed to like showcase to everyone who was like, this is ridiculous, that we can do it. So yeah, it was this crazy combination of adrenaline, nerves, excitement. And then when we got it, I was just like, right, like now it's game time.
You just said something that's quite interesting there. So this is 2022, 18 months old, the brand. But there's an element of you that's still trying to prove to other people that it was a thing. Did that actually exist? Was the doubt from other people still after 18 months, crazy festival experiences, proving that concept can be profitable, then pitching Diageo? Is that what you needed to prove to other people that it was going to work?
Now you say it, you know what? I feel like it's more proving to myself because I think there is always you've probably had this as well, no matter whatever like listing you land, no matter what revenue you hit, there's always that like thing inside of me that I think is like do more, grow more, be better, more validation. I'm not sure if there's ever a point where I'll actually truly be happy.
I'd say it's the entrepreneur's curse, that.
Yeah.
I think that's the curse of doing this thing, is like it's always going to exist. And
it's painful to live with because it means you don't sit with wins for long enough. You never actually recognize that where you are right now is exactly where you wanted to be a couple of years ago. But in that moment, 18 months in, I definitely do think there was this air of uncertainty, as there is every single year, like when you run out of cash and all of that kind of stuff. But I think in my mind, to get me through, I would just set these invisible milestones to be like, okay, once I do this, then everyone will be like, you're doing it. But in reality, like a lot of people were probably just like, you guys are doing phenomenally well. And I probably just listened to the one person who was a bit skeptical, and I was like, I'll show you.
Do you think that drives you though?
Yeah. 100%. I think like an element of being a successful entrepreneur, and I'm not saying I am a successful one in any way, shape or form, but I think it is that little intrusive voice that is like, be better, do more, go faster. I think without that, you lose momentum. You're not constantly like driving to be whether it's the best margarita in market or the best like entrepreneur out there in terms of how you're doing X, Y, and Z. So yeah.
But you just said you don't think you're a very successful entrepreneur. So what's going to make it successful for you?
God, one to unpack with the old therapist, I think.
You and Alice as well, like, because there is the element of like, I know exactly what you mean, and people that have been on the show and people that I talk to, like, there's always more to get to. And I do think that like founders and entrepreneurs are so bad at celebrating wins, like it's just the worst thing. But it's also kind of if you start doing that, obviously when you have a team, it's incredibly important, right? Because it's a different perspective. But if you start doing that too much, you kind of do stop going forward and you kind of get that satisfaction point. But like for you and Alice, you guys have gone through so much already, knowing half your story. There's so much success happening. Were you not able to celebrate many of those wins? But for you guys, if you've got such a tight relationship, it feels like you must have been doing.
We're probably two of the worst people at sitting in that moment and celebrating our success. I always tell people who are asking me for advice, make sure you celebrate the wins, do all of that kind of stuff. But I don't swallow my own medicine. I can like completely appreciate that it's something that everyone needs to do, and I just clearly do the opposite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird reality to sit with, I guess, and it's definitely something I acknowledge we need to do more of. But I think I need to have a sit down with myself and really recognize what success looks like to me. Because landing Sainsbury's that we did, that was my previous, like, I always set myself like a yearly North Star. Like, this is what will be the best thing like for the business, and every single decision we make ladders up to that.
Amazing.
So we had Sainsbury's this year. I can probably say we celebrate, like, I was happy about that for all of 15 minutes before I started celebrating or worrying about the next thing. And I think that's a terrible way to operate, because why are we putting ourselves through all of this uncertainty and stress if we're not enjoying the journey? And arguably that's the most beautiful part of the whole thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's something that I need to figure out. I'll let you know.
I think, do you know what? I think anyone that's building quickly and building fast, or even finding forms of success, it's just a very natural being. I know exactly what you mean in terms of when you first start a thing, when you get to a certain point, it's that thing of like, I'll be happy then, I'll be satisfied then. But then by the journey of going to that point always unlocks the next thing in the mind. What was the impact of Diageo coming in?
So I can remember it really clearly at the time, because we were looking to do a really small investment round of 250, really small investment round, 250k.
In the grand scheme of things, I was like, I know what you mean, yeah. 250k.
And when I was able to go to all of our kind of warm angel investors and say, we've landed the Diageo Distl investment, every single one of them immediately jumped on the opportunity. So what was a 250k raise turned into, like, I think we closed at like 580k,
wow,
which at the time was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I think people, obviously there's no such thing as a risk-free investment when you're 18 months into it.
No.
But if you can say to people that this is a huge focus area for the likes of Diageo, and it gave us so much credibility. It was something that we brought up in conversations with investors within the industry, just so we had more credibility as a brand when we were speaking to retailers and things like that. It really, really helped. And I think on a like more personal level, I think it really validated me as well.
What do you mean by that?
I think when we first launched Pimentae, it was, I mean, it's fantastic that tequila and RTD are such huge growth areas now. But at the time, tequila was still in its infancy in the UK. Right. RTD was still like, should we go into cans? Shouldn't we go into cans? So there's all of this uncertainty. All we knew is that we were creating a really cool brand that people loved, but like we didn't have that. Maybe I'm just the kind of person who needs that. I kind of needed this like validation from the higher powers that we're growing, like we're on the right trajectory. We're doing all of the right things.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that I'd presented our like commercial business plan to Diageo and they were like, we love what you're doing. We love the multi-formats and all of this. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I came up with that strategy. I can do it. So I think for me, it was like, I'm building with purpose and I need purpose. I need to wake up and be like, have meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that it turned it from being this fun startup to a business that has legs.
And with that, I mean, you raised the cash to invest back into the business. Where did a lot of that go?
A lot of it went into launching the cans. So we launched with the 50cl glass bottles and we did a full launch into like RTD cans. Not many brands were doing it at the time. Moth were leading the kind of charge. And I think we were kind of second after them to do that, which was amazing. And now it's the fastest growing sector within alcohol right now, RTD. So it's where the market's at. Me and Alice were a team of 2 for 2 and a bit years. We made our first 2 hires, which was amazing. We decided to get ourselves a little office space, co-working. We launched 2 new products. And then that also supported the Waitrose launch as well. So a bit of working capital in there.
Yeah. How did you find hiring the team?
I'm an absolute freak when it comes to hiring. I've got problems. When I made Katie was our first hire. She's our senior national account manager. So she manages like pubs, bars, restaurants. I interviewed 31 people. And
31
people.
That's quite a lot.
It's a lot. Good luck to my team.
Well, and Katie, to be fair.
They were all like, I made it very clear to, we put out an ad on LinkedIn, and then we had a recruiter that we were working with as well. But I made it clear that the intro call would just be like a vibe check, like 10, 15 minutes, just so I'm not wasting like half an hour with 31 people, but 10, 15 minutes. And I think for me, I came from a corporate environment where I absolutely hated the culture, where I was told that bums on seats equaled like productivity. I wasn't allowed to work abroad, even though my family live abroad. There were like so many elements of my previous corporate environment that I hated. And I wanted to make sure that when I was cultivating a team, that I instilled all of those values and I brought the people in as well who reflected that. And because it's such a small team as well, I need to make sure that the person we're bringing in has a founder mentality, is happy to wear like 1,012 hats every single day. And Katie was that. There were so many interviews that I had where I was listening to people and I would kind of like tap out and I was like, this feels like really rehearsed. And then when Katie came in, I was just like actually rooting for her. Like in the background, I had like the flags out going, yes, you can do it. Because Alice was on the call too. And I was like, I found this gem. Like, and I was so excited to present her. And I think that's the mentality I still have with every single hire we make. I'm like, I want the best. And we do have a powerhouse team now, which is amazing.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I mean, you guys are growing, so it seems like that must be a great team behind it. What do you think the most important trait of a team member for Pimentae is?
I think on the sales side, they need to be resilient as hell, but also, I kind of alluded to this earlier, when someone says no, we hear yes. It's fine. It's just a little like, no, right now we can pivot. We can give you like this. Maybe we'll do like a little 1 month free trial. We'll do a pop-up with like one of our kegs and you can get $2,000 in your till. Then you give us the listing after. Like all of these like little nuances. You got to get creative with it. When someone says no, we're going to pop up and like be in your face anyway to like a nice level, not like crazy. But yeah, I think it's the resilience, the creative problem solving, and just like knowing that as a small brand in a space that's dominated by like Diageo's throwing 100K to get the listing, we need to be a little bit quirky. And then from a marketing standpoint, and I know this is your bread and butter and more Alice's, but in order to stand out, we needed to kind of, I think for us, we just needed to lean into the storytelling founder side of things. Sure. So we needed to bring somebody in who really understood that if our competitors were doing this, we wanted to do the complete opposite in terms of how we were showing up as an alcohol brand. And I think from the beginning, we were very good at building in public, having this very kind of like a lifestyle-led brand, but also showcasing all of the hardships. So I think all of the people who came into the team needed to understand that they weren't just kind of come into a business that was very traditional in terms of how we show up. Sure. It needs to resonate with who we're speaking to in a unique way.
When you started obviously getting the 2 team members in, did things grow quicker or at the same pace, or did they grow slower?
I think I have a problem with delegating at the beginning.
Interesting.
But
not anymore?
Not anymore.
Okay.
And I think that comes from a place where I just love being across all the detail. Like I love having my nose in everyone's business, knowing what's going on the whole time.
Sure.
And I think when you're so used to doing that for 2 years and being responsible for every single thing, when someone comes in and they're like, I'm going to grow this side of the business, I'm like, but it's fine. But then once Katie came in, I mean, she grew the wholesale arm of our business from 0 to 250 grand in 1 year. And she's one individual human, which is crazy.
That's incredible.
And I think that was the biggest lesson of bringing somebody in who is better than me, an expert in her space more so than me. Absolutely. And she paid for herself within the first 3 months. And I was like, okay, this is how we hire. We bring in people who are the best. We bring in people who are better and we give them autonomy. I will like upskill you in whatever way I can from like certain areas. But otherwise, fly free, do what you do best. That's why you're here. I'm not here to micromanage you.
No, definitely. How were you developing your leadership style in this time?
So fortunately, when I was at Sky, I was managing people.
Right.
But I think, again, like I took so much from all of the things that I disliked having in a manager there, the ones who were kind of very micromanagey, the ones who didn't kind of give you the freedom to have your own ideas. And I just wanted to make sure that I constantly was asking Katie, I was like, this is my first time doing it in my own business. And whilst these are the ways that I operate, please, please, please tell me if there is something you want more of, less of, if there's a way I'm communicating with you that you like or you dislike, because I'm still learning. I want this to be as fruitful as humanly possible. And me and Alice would go to like so many talks as well, just to kind of try and absorb as much as we could. But I think from the beginning it was always difficult because it was just me and Alice, and you know, you're bringing in people from a completely different industry, and when it's like a wholesale team who's used to like being out in trade, I can't be like, I want you to be in the office every 2 to 3 days. You have to have that implicit trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of being a good leader, trusting people and knowing that being sat in your seat from 9 to 5:30 doesn't equal success. Like you'll make up the time if you need to. And now I come from a place where I'm so flexible. We love the hybrid working model. You can work abroad for a month in January. If you want to get into work at 10 and finish like a little bit later to miss the morning commute, stress, do that. It's trust. I don't interview 31 people for no reason.
Yeah, true. Did you ever feel self-conscious about being a leader?
So no, I think I would be worried about not helping somebody develop and progress. I think that was my fear, but I like to think that I am somebody who would like motivate, encourage, inspire, like bring a lot of humor to situations, things like that. So I was never nervous that my personality type didn't suit a leadership role, just because by nature I love speaking to like C-suite people and like being like, I want to be you when I grow up, and just like absorbing. Always got a growth mindset on how I can be better. If someone says I need X or Y from you, sponge. I don't think I'm a polished project by any means, and I think that's what makes a good leader, right? Like you can take the criticism. You always want to grow. You want to be better. But I wasn't self-conscious. So I don't think I've got like a personality type that's a bit like, oh, I shy away from it. I'll naturally go into a call and be like, this is the agenda, this is what we're doing, these are the objectives, and these are the next steps.
Lean into it.
Exactly, 100% at the end of the investor call. So what size ticket are you thinking, and what are your timelines?
Straight up.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it. The industry you mentioned a few times in the conversation, but also some of the competitors as well. How do you look at competition?
I think the more people who are showing up in the tequila RTD space, fantastic. It's shining a spotlight onto the growth of the category. It's amazing. Obviously, there's an element of our growth that's going to be cannibalized. But I think, as we were speaking before, like, I think there is enough market share for everyone. There's not just one successful gin brand, hence why we've got 15 gin RTDs on like a retail shelf.
Yeah.
There is enough space for everybody. And this is kind of one of the things I was thinking about at the start of this week that I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit scared to do. Like, have a laser focused strategy. Like, be so confident on owning your niche. Ours is tequila RTD, that even if somebody else does launch another margarita, cool. Like, I know who we're speaking to. I know who our consumer is. I know the brand world that we're creating. That's our armor. Like, just because someone else is launching another margarita, it doesn't mean that all of the kind of barriers to entry that we have created suddenly disappear.
Yeah.
I think it's just having the confidence in the fact that we've built our product for a specific segment of the consumer that we're speaking to. I'm not trying to speak to everyone in the market. There's space for everybody. More of a spotlight on tequila is an amazing thing for me. It's growing 237% year on year, tequila RTDs. Everything else is in decline. So I'm not surprised more people want to kind of join the margarita trail. I would.
Do you, thinking about your competitors, do you take a lot of inspiration from them as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Moth have done a fantastic job of showcasing the high ABV premium RTDs. They kind of carved that space out. It didn't exist before they launched. So wonderful that they've done that, and it's such a huge growing category. So for me, it's like if they can scale their business to where they have, but they're doing it in a very different way, I'm like, perfect. We can use them to showcase that businesses can get to that kind of revenue trajectory where you become appetizing for the exit. But I just know we're doing it in a very different way. We've got different products, different consumers, different branding, and all of that. So yeah, I absolutely look at brands in the space and go, yeah, okay, that's cool. But then I do also look at brands as well, and I'm like, if you're doing that, then you know, I don't ever look at anyone and go, I want to be like you. We want to create something totally different. If you think the same as everyone else, you're going to get the same outcome, and that's not what we want either.
So true. What do you think is driving the most amount of growth for you guys?
Definitely. So cans make up, I think, like 50% of our product mix. They're the lowest margin product that we have, but they're so accessible. It's marketing on a can.
Sure.
So the cans are fantastic, easily accessible price point, great for like retail festivals and things like that. But I think the thing that's driving the most growth, but also I guess differentiating us, is the kind of like multiple formats that we offer. So we're not just a retail product. We've got 20-litre kegs that are attached into draft systems, which unlocks like pubs, bars, restaurants, stadiums, big focus for us at the moment. Then we've got a 5-litre bag in a box proposition, which is also great for pubs, bars, restaurants, office spaces, things like that. So I think it's when somebody wants a cocktail solution that can fit every single consumer touch point, that's where they'll bring Pimentae in. So we've just landed a stadium in Birmingham, and they wanted Pimentae because we have 20-litre kegs, cans, and bag in a box, and they've got VIP suites, they've got self-serve. So it's us understanding that their consumers all want to consume Pimentae in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what's fueling a lot of our growth.
It's super interesting. It's exactly what, do you know Nice Wines?
Yes.
Lucy came on the show, about over a year ago now, and it was exactly the same answer in terms of that element of kind of product distribution.
Yes.
And the format thing is just a huge driver. And I think even she was saying that for brands that aren't doing that, it can actually be quite challenging when you're just stuck in almost one lane in terms of who you're appealing to, but also your end consumer is going to care, but actually it's your stockists that are going to get the most.
100%. And I think the more touch points, the more formats, the more of a halo effect you can see with your consumers. They've got more recall if they can get you in Sainsbury's on the way home, if they see you at Glasgow when you're at a bar. Like, you're just so in their face that they're just like, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also just silly building a business around one format when retail buyers make decisions twice a year. If I don't add like Sainsbury's this year, that's £1 million gone, and I'm not able to pivot into another channel, which is quite risky in itself. So
definitely,
those are all of the things that I guess went through the back of our minds when we were like, multiple formats, diversified revenue streams. That's risk.
Is there any product or format that you thought you were going to make or tried to make that didn't work out?
At one point, and it definitely works for some brands but not ours, there was like a talk of trying to do like a recyclable bottle.
Right.
It was kind of like a festival, not a kind of, but more like the wood slightly more robust, and like in a, the aluminium wine bottles like that, but kind of more of a wooden.
Windows, actually.
Exactly, but more like wooden and for the festival space.
Got it.
People were like, sustainability, recycling, like you guys should definitely try this. It would fly. We didn't end up doing it, but I feel like that would have been something that really didn't work for us. But other than that, I feel like we pretty much do all of the
Gone for everything. Yeah.
We've gone through them all.
So what does the future look like for you guys then? Where do you want to go?
So EU is a big focus for us.
Not America?
Not America.
Really?
Not America. We briefly touched on this earlier. I think there have been so many phenomenal brands in the UK, like incredible brands who have just not been able to make the US work. And I think if you can make it work, honestly, hats off to you. And I think there are some brands where they absolutely thrive and they fly because their proposition just works. I think in tequila and in alcohol, one, there's like a 3-tiered like legislation system, like wrapping your head around that's crazy. Even if you're taking on one state at a time, like we would probably need to do a £2 to £5 million fundraise just for marketing. The margins just wouldn't be there for us.
Just to launch into that.
Just to exist in their ether. I also think to make the US work, you need some kind of like talent attached to you, which is kind of another obstacle. And if there's enough headroom in the UK and EU and we've got really strong margins, why would we pivot there?
Yeah.
I think when we get to a point where hopefully we're kind of like in the realm of looking at that acquisition piece, they typically like to see that you can work in the US. So like maybe dip a toe in there just to showcase the demand's there. They acquire you, then they pump it through, and then, they've got the cash. Is that a goal
for you guys to sell it?
Yeah. From the very beginning, I know I kind of mentioned the North Star, the more like realistic ones have been the like grocers or the pub groups that we've landed. But for me, even from the beginning, whenever I could even get 30 minutes, and I did, like I've been doing this for the last couple of months, whenever I can steal half an hour with a X, Pernod, Bacardi, Diageo, I will say, what are you looking for in a brand that you're going to acquire? What revenue, what products, what geographical locations? So I know that I'm building the business with purpose and we've ticked all of those boxes by the time we get there. And I can say, look, we've executed on all of those. I know a lot of them do change, but like, I'm not just like building a business to like it.
For the sake of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's always been the goal.
Nice. So last question for me, what does it take to build a brand like Pimentae?
I think one, a co-founder. I would never I think there's too much to do, too much like the diverse skill sets that you need to do it. Like just start with a co-founder if you can, I would say, and go into it knowing that it will be the most soul destroying thing you've ever done, but the most fulfilled I've ever felt in my entire life. Like, don't be naive to think it's glamorous at all. You will be challenged, you will be tested, but my God, my brain is always like alive. And yeah, I just think the opportunities are so endless, but just go into it with realistic expectations of how much graft it's going to be and be ready to like fucking commit.
Fucking commit sounds like a great way to end.
Yeah.
Wynter, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been fascinating to learn more about the journey you've been on, because it's been an interesting one for sure. And yeah, I've taken a lot from it. I'm sure people will too. So thank you. Best of luck. Enjoy the summer that we're about to go into. How many festivals this year?
25.
Nice. We'll enjoy every single one of them. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.